Happy holidays and welcome to Uncommon Christmas on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a merry podcasting blend of Christmas movie peculiarities and festive coffee drinks. My name is Nick Delaney and I'm your show host, coffee critic, film reviewer, and the guy who thinks Christmas gifts are best when they're from the heart, not the list. On this episode, I'm joined by my dear friend Nick H.E., and we'll be discussing Carol, the 2015 film directed by Todd Haynes and starring the spectacular Cate Blanchett. This heart-achy film will be paired with a review of Foundation Coffee Roaster, located in Fairfax, Virginia. Please sit back, stay a while, and let's talk weird-ass names from the 1950s over some coffee. Today, I am honored to be joined by an extra special guest. Today's guest is the source of all knowledge we know to be true, and one of the funniest, most quick-witted people of all time. He is a historian, a teacher, a subscriber to the sweet treat philosophy, a professional Lana Del Rey hater, and he has never been wrong once in his life. Everyone, please welcome my dear friend and fraternity big, Nick AG, to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This has been a long time coming, I feel. I think that we've been plotting and planning but never pulled the trigger. So,
Yes, I mean, my favorite thing to do is say we should have a podcast to any person who I've ever interacted with once. And this is the first time it's actually come to fruition.
I know, and I know that we've said that multiple times. So this is just like a dream, which I'm very happy that you're officially here. But for those of you that are watching or listening and do not know what Uncommon Christmas is, this is the seasonal review series on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks that curates non-traditional Christmas films. These holiday oddities will be paired with unique seasonal coffee drinks for the entire month of December. You are currently listening to part 2 of the Uncommon Christmas series, so check out part 1 if you have not yet. Nikki G, how are you doing?
Pretty good, sipping on some coffee and
Yes.
enjoying the cold winter air. I'm a
Enjoying.
lover of cold weather.
I feel like I'm frozen into an ice block every time I step outside.
I love that. I pretend I'm in Ice Age. I am sliding around on my ice block. I'm the ice climbers. Like, I love being cold.
Love that. Love that. This is something that I like to ask anyone who comes on the show. And I'm starting to do that today. So, what is on your coffee table? Meaning, what sort of like media things are you consuming currently? What do you want to put out there to show people?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I had to tune in the other day to see the premiere of Dochi on her tiny desk for NPR.
Yes.
I am so obsessed with Dochi right now. She is so like just she's really throwing back to like the 90s hip hop scene, and I'm just obsessed with everything that she's putting out. I've been listening since like her collab with not Normani SZA back in the day, and she's just been getting better and better and really starting to get like finally get her flowers.
Yes. I love Dochi. I'm not like as big of a fan as you are, but I think like once I pull the trigger and like really start getting into her music, it will be all over and I will be like Dochi super fan. That one song you put me on to, Alter Ego, she's in that, right?
That's her song.
That's
Yeah.
her song. Love Alter Ego. I'll put a little picture of it right here. Yeah. What else is on your coffee table? What magazines, books, movies, shows?
Okay. TV show, I just started it, so I'm not like deep into it yet, but it's called Say Nothing. It's about the IRA and the first women who joined into the IRA when they finally let women like be like quote unquote soldiers in the IRA, but not even quote
Interesting.
unquote like actual fighters.
Yeah.
And it's all about Dolores Price and her sister who are like leading this revolution within the IRA against the English army and the UK in general.
That's so cool. What is that streaming on?
It's on Hulu, which I guess means also Disney Plus. Um, it's really good. It's interesting. It's intense, but it also has like these weird comedic moments
Mm.
because I, it's led by two like teenage girls who are
Oh.
dealing with this time, the troubles, and
Mm.
joining into a revolutionary army. And so it's like them having the like feminist movement within this revolutionary group that's traditionally all Irish men. And
Mhm.
so you get the comedy infused with them like fighting back and using like the like Irishisms and the sayings and stuff that are from the island.
Now, I didn't know this took place on Ireland, my motherland,
Mm-hmm.
I actually am also currently tuned into an Irish program on Disney Plus.
Uh-huh.
I'm currently watching Normal People for the first time, which is starring Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones, and it's just like a sad little love story. Have you seen this?
I have not, but I am a big fan of Paul Mescal.
How could you not be? How
Right.
could you not be? I have not yet made the jump and watched Gladiator 2 because Ridley Scott,
Yes. Ridley Scott.
which we have a history with Ridley Scott. I don't know if we can explain that right now. It might just be something for us, but we
That's for the Patreon that you don't
that
have.
is for the Patreon I do not have. We could that could honestly be my first step into monetizing. Basically, we went to a screening. I'm not gonna like say what it was because it would just sound weird.
Then maybe we
But
should not explain.
I'm just gonna like it was a screening of Alien. Maybe someone else went to like this re-screening of Alien and saw what we saw. And there was like a introduction to the show, how they do like thank you for seeing this in theaters. It was right before Alien Romulus came out, and there was just like the way the shot was set up when they were like recording Ridley Scott. We were exposed to something very
It
graphic and
was
obscene,
unflattering to say the least.
and we were crying, laughing. Maybe the first 30 minutes of the movie, I could not get it together.
It was inappropriate and unflattering for Ridley Scott. Isn't he like a sir or whatever to
Oh
like
my God, is he?
is he British?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Maybe.
well,
I don't
he's
know.
British. I think for sure he's a sir. He's been knighted. But
That
that
should have
was
been revoked after this.
it, at least for the camera people, because that was bad. That was a setup for him.
Yes, yes. Ridley Scott, though, just recently has not been hitting for me. I think that like movie studios love to throw money at him because he made Alien, but like when you think about it, recently he hasn't had too many hits. I think he made Napoleon, which I just also was not interested in. He loves like a little historical drama.
But why do I feel like he was talking about um Napoleon? It was like it doesn't have to be historically accurate as long as it's like exciting. And I was like, I feel like if you're claiming it's a historical movie, it should be accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. What else has been going on with you?
I recently taught this book called Cultish
Hmm.
by Amanda something. Don't remember her last name. Very, very interesting. She talks about how um from obviously like cults, but then to like what she considers like modern day cults and cultish language
Hmm.
and like exercise fads like Peloton or
Hmm.
like Soul Cycle or CrossFit, and then even to things like Mary Kay and like that kind of
Right.
energy in like pyramid schemes or MLMs. Um, how they have this kind of cultish language to create the community that
Mm.
is really devoted to whatever it is. It's so interesting, and it
Yeah.
talks about such a like a wide breadth of like different topics and different like groups.
Wow.
It's super intriguing. And it's also really captivating. And the language is so approachable. And like, I mean, I teach it to high schoolers. So,
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, I think I mentioned that you're a history teacher, but you're also teaching a psychology class this year, which that's very exciting as well.
yes.
Um, but very nice. That's a nice like coffee table spread. So lovely,
Hmm.
lovely. Okay, let's get this roaster cooking. Um, hmm. So, in our first segment, Now Brewing, is our luxury coffee discussion and review segment. So, today, you and I, we just got back from Foundation Coffee Roaster in Fairfax, Virginia.
Right.
So, right away, first impressions, this place was like a little crazy because it is in like a warehouse.
It was like tucked away into like the back of the building of this like strip mall where all like the fire exits are for
Right.
the regular businesses. So it's the only one on this side. And immediately when I'm entering, I'm like, this was made for like bionicles. Like it is like an industrial vibe, super like crisp, clean, and white. It's not like a cafe vibe at all.
Yeah. But I'm a huge fan of like cafes like that, kind of like the very minimalist and like you know, it feels like you're in a Costco almost, like the exposed ceilings, very high
Yeah,
ceilings. I love that. And they have the little board with the coffee, their menu on it, and it's like just very, basic. Like this is not the coffee house from Friends at all.
right.
But I love that vibe. It was like you had to go through this row of like loading docks to get there. So when I was like navigating there through GPS, I was like, okay, so I'm going to be killed in this back alley.
Swerving to avoid the 18-wheeler trailers. There's no trucks, just the trailers.
Right, right. But lo and behold, turn the corner and there's that just like one little spot where this coffee house is hiding. So I kind of love that. That's like a little experience. It's the journey.
It is. It's
It's
the
the journey.
journey.
But what did we get? What did we get here?
So I got a caramel latte and a delicious almond croissant.
Yes.
Um, Pastries on point. I did bite into it, and even prior to biting into it, I knew immediately that this was going to like crumble into dust in my hands the second I bit into it. Um, and it did that, but in a way that I was like, yeah, this is good.
Yes, I also got an almond croissant and I got a cold brew, which is still right here. So this is a live tasting as well. The almond croissant, delish, and I was so pleased to find out that when you did bite into it, it disintegrated into nothingness, very a la Avengers Infinity War.
Hmm.
Love that. It was delish, and I love the cream in the middle.
Yes, it was so
Lovely.
well flavored. It had like everything that you want in like a almond croissant. I
Yeah,
mean,
yes. And I love that the almonds were like they tasted fresh. It was like freshly
yeah, like
sliced.
lightly toasted almond slivers. Like it was very bougie. Like
Yes.
they did go to Costco. They got the big green bag with
Oh
the
yeah.
slivers of almonds and they
Mm.
sprinkled it on top.
Yes, it was perfect. And their other pastries there looked lovely. Uh,
Fresh.
yes.
Offered to warm it up after almost bringing it to the table.
She like
Um,
brought it to the table, was like, "Do you want this warmed up?" And it's like one of those moments where you feel bad, like being like, "Yeah, I kind
yeah,
of do."
but it was worth it because
Yes, it
it was
was.
better.
It was, and she was happy to warm it up. The service was good. Now, what did you think about the coffee?
Um, I'm kind of biased because I am such like a basic person when it comes to coffee. I will brew a cup of Folgers coffee, and the only thing that matters to me is what kind of like creamer I use with it. Like
Mhm.
I'm obsessed with oat milk creamer currently. Um,
Yes.
and so I go into coffee shops and I'm like, I'm just gonna order what I know to say to them, and I got the caramel latte, and I was like, this is going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But for a latte, I thought it was good. I love the beautiful art on the top.
Yes.
Um,
Pictured here.
didn't do a Christmas tree. I don't know why.
Like
Um,
it's December, everyone.
but they were playing like covers of every Christmas song you've ever heard in your entire life that were
Right.
ones I had never even imagined existed before.
Yeah. I want to go off that point. There were no seasonal beverages on the menu,
Right.
which I was a little jump scared by that. And I was like, this is, after all, uncommon Christmas. Where are the Christmas drinks? The holiday drinks, even.
That was what was uncommon. There was none.
Right. That's the uncommon thing. Nowhere to be seen, missing. They had pumpkin spice, but I was like,
It's past the date.
yeah, expiration date has been had.
Mariah Carey's in the top three.
Right.
Roll it out.
Yes, rent is due. And you also mentioned that you tried seeking out a little Christmas drink at a local place. And what did they say?
I called in and they were like, we haven't unveiled the peppermint mocha yet. I'm like, it's a week into December. When is a better time to do it than now? Like,
Right.
it's cold, it's winter, it is time for the peppermint beverages to arrive.
Yes. Like, Mama, let's do the revealing then.
Mama, there's no peppermint mocha behind you.
There's none. There were in fact no holiday drinks behind us.
No.
None. So that was disappointing. Disappointing. But I did end up getting a cold brew, which is just like my panic mode, like, okay, I'll just do that. They did have like other little interesting drinks. They had a green tea chai, which if I wanted something that didn't have coffee in it, I'd probably get that. So that sounded pretty good. But the cold brew that I had, this is like cold brew in its most basic form, I think. There is nothing like extraordinary about it. The notes are just very like sort of like that burnt flavor that I really like having in my cold brew. But this is just like, completely average. So, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it was, you know, a fine place to go. It seemed more like a place where you go to get work done. They had like this balcony area with like a strip
Yeah.
desk where it was like stools and stuff, and I think every single seat was filled with somebody on a computer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people go there and they get to work. Nobody wants to work anymore except at Foundations Coffee.
Exactly, exactly. But I do like that they had that sort of like platform area, and it wasn't just like a warehouse, and it was just like
Right.
tables and a huge high ceiling. Like they actually gave it some depth and
Use their
variation.
space.
Yeah, they used the space very well. And the bar. I love when coffee houses have sort of like a 360 bar in the middle of the store. Working at like a chain coffee shop for so long, it was so annoying and honestly just such stupid planning to have like just a bar tucked away in the corner, and it was just very like two lanes, like people walking back and forth. Having a bar that's like 360, like serving all side 360 Charlie XCX, bumping that, bumping that, bumping that,
Wow.
it all came together. Um, it just like makes life as a barista so much easier to like hand out drinks wherever and like keep eyes on the cafe and everything. So as a barista, I appreciated the design of this place. It's lovely. So what would your rating be?
Um, you know, that almond croissant I think is honestly carrying the score up. So if I have to
Yes.
be realistic, I would say maybe like a 6.5 out of 10 or 7.
I would, if we're doing numbers, I would give it about a 6 or a 7 as well. This place was solid, but nothing like spectacular. I think what really brought the score up for me is yes, the almond croissant and just like the unique atmosphere and like the thrill of like will I or won't I be killed? Finding this little coffee shop,
Yes.
going through the back rooms and everything of Fairfax, Virginia. So with that being said, I am going to give Foundation Coffee Roaster the Nick Mix. It was really good, but nothing warranting,
I didn't leave being like,
flowers.
I can't wait to come back here.
Yes, exactly. Maybe if I was having like a little work from home day, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
That would be lovely. Okay. So, our next segment that we do on the show is the Coffee Thought. And this is an outlet dedicated to voice our many incoherent thoughts over a lovely cup of coffee. Do we have coffee right now? Clink.
Think
Yes.
exactly.
Okay. So we discussed kind of like spitballing before this episode what our coffee thought could be. What could we possibly talk about? Many ideas were had. Many ideas. World politics, world crises. Is that the plural of crisis? Crises?
Crises, yeah.
Yes. I have the mind of a master. Um, Lots of different things. I think we have a main idea we want to get to, but kind of like as a preview, a little feeler taster sort of moment, we want to talk about custom wood burning.
Right.
Now, this is an icon and a legend to us. I don't even know how long I've been subscribed to this channel, watching her lives and such. What are your thoughts on custom wood burning?
She's such an interesting and unique person to like see the media that she's producing.
Yes.
I don't think that there's anybody like her that I could really compare her to. I think that the thrill is almost, and this may be like controversial to say, and I don't know if maybe you'll cut this part, but the vibe that she gives is like Miranda sings almost.
Oh my God. Miranda
Because
sings before the downfall.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because she has like the weird energy and she does a weird voice.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that she talks and acts is very akin to like that kind of vibe. Not necessarily exactly Miranda sings, but like
Yes.
the weird vibe.
And I guess for those of you listening that we just sort of like got right into it, custom word burning is basically a figure that emerged from the chaos of TikTok.
Mhm.
Just like this person, this faceless person, we don't know what she looks like. Well, we do, but very Miranda Sings. We're like, this is just a completely different personality. Emerged from the chaos of TikTok, and basically she makes these custom wood burnt pieces. If you're following along on the video, I'll put like an example right here. And she does little live streams on TikTok where she gets mad at her audience and basically is like, she's just constantly back and forth with her audience. Yeah, just kind of one of those outlandish personalities who's like not in touch with the world at all. But it's comedy. This is camp. This is satire.
Mm.
Speaking of which, you have an original custom wood burning piece.
I do. Maybe that will be the picture that we show.
Yes,
Is
yes, we'll
the
put it
original
right here.
piece.
And it was in fact commissioned by me.
Yes,
Uh,
birthday present, happy birthday to me.
yes, it is one of my favorite things to get people. I've gotten this for a few friends now. It's just a great gift because it is personalized and it is funny and it's a nice little wood burn smell.
Agreed.
So, but I have a lot of thoughts about her. Like, does she do this full time now? Because I feel like she must make quite a bit of cash on the side from this.
Well, people do actually like go out and buy pieces that she makes and commission her to do things, which
Mhm.
cost money. But then she's also getting money from the TikTok lives because
Right.
so many people follow along.
Yeah, and that's the point is like, she reacts to when you send in like a big gift to the TikTok live, like she reacts to it. So you're getting like your little personal moment with her. Even if it's very brief and she's like yelling at you like, "Hey," or something crazy. It's still, so that's like her thing. And it's almost kind of, oh, this is connecting really well. She is almost like a drag queen. She is like a drag performer in a way, I think, because she's like getting the tips and sort of she's feeding off the audience a bit and like their
And she does
interaction.
like custom nails, quote unquote custom nails, fully press-ons, or like sometimes they're like pieces of paper. Like it's been every sort of thing. She's burned a hole through them with the like
Yes.
burning pencil thingy that she has. It's like it's been everything.
Yes. As RuPaul Charles says, like you're born naked, the rest is drag. So I would argue that custom wood burning is a drag performer in a way.
I mean, in the hands, 100%.
Well, that's all we see really.
And she's giving it a voice. That's not her real voice.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we love custom wood burning here. She is a legend to us. We look to her for guidance on many different topics.
Hmm.
Moving on to the main event, what we actually wanted to discuss today. I Perfect segue. RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, you are a huge fan of the television series and its many, many, many spin-off shows. RuPaul's Drag Race. You've probably seen all of the different shows, right?
Not all of them, but I do have some.
Mhm.
I reach out and go to some extras for sure.
Yes, yes. Now we just this is so our friendship was like founded on RuPaul's Drag Race. I think I when I first met you, that was sort of like how you invited me over. You were like, "Let's watch this." So that was like how I got to know you, and also my introduction into drag, really, and Drag Race and that world. So this is, I guess, a perfect topic for us to be discussing. But to start, what are some of your favorite RuPaul drag queens, or your favorite RuPaul Drag Race moments?
I mean, Drag Race queens. I love Bob the Drag Queen, Monet Exchange,
Mm,
um, Alaska, Delta Work is I think
yep.
a personal favorite of mine.
Yes.
Um, but I love like outside of that, like from Spain, like Carmen Farala. I love
Mm,
um Nikki Doll from France, Kiona
yeah.
from
Yeah.
France. Love, love, love. Um, so I do keep up with some of the international seasons, and I have some favorites from around the world too.
Very nice. Very nice. I think my favorite drag queens are definitely Bob the Drag Queen. I love Sasha Velour.
Ooh,
She's one of my just
yes,
favorites down. I love Jada Essence Hall.
you're naming all these people that I
I
forgot.
know, so
Yes,
you
I
must hate
love
them.
Jada Essence Hall.
I love Peppermint.
Okay,
No, I'm just rubbing it in your face.
right.
But yeah, these are all some of my favorite queens. I know I'm forgetting a few. I love Crystal Method. I think she's like a very just unique and fun, and also like she just has like a lot of depth, I guess, to her character. Um, yeah, there's so many good ones. Of course, I know your favorite drag queen that you're not mentioning, Sasha Colby.
Oh my God, I love Sasha Colby.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I mean, your favorite drag queen's favorite drag queen. How could you not? Um, so what would you say are some of your favorite drag race moments? Like what comes to mind?
Well, I have to say, I was back in high school introduced to season 8 of RuPaul's Drag Race by some of my
Yes.
friends. I wasn't watching it as it was like airing or anything, but I would like catch up with them in like the locker bays of my high school, and they'd be like talking about Bob, this person, Kimchi, Acid Betty, hating on some, loving some. And I was like, what is this show even about? And so of course I had to tune in next season, season 9, introducing me to Sasha Velour, love, and also
Yeah.
Shea Coulee, love,
Yeah.
and Peppermint,
Peppermint.
love.
Yeah.
Um, So season 9 has a special place in my heart. So I of course love like let's get this roast cooking.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Pheromone, so lovely visually, but just
Yes.
kind of a clunker sometimes.
Which is why she's so great. Like
Yes,
she's
it's part
that's
of the
why she's
appeal. It's
funny.
part of the
Yes.
appeal. Um, don't joke about that, Eureka. Like there's just so many good moments from that season in particular too that are just like sue me, uh, Valentina, you look beautiful, you're a model. That season is just like packed to the brim with so many good moments that I could just like quote for the entire episode.
You don't love me. That
Hello.
I'm gonna get that tattooed on me. That is like one of my favorite moments. You don't love me.
Do I look upset to you?
I'm not upset. I'm not upset.
Like,
All such great moments there. Yeah.
and I
My
sorry, I have
oh,
to
go ahead.
do I love the earlier seasons too. Season
Yes.
2,
Yes.
Nicole Page Brooks from Atlanta, Georgia is probably one of my favorites too.
Hmm.
Um, has anybody seen the picture of my mother, Shauna Brooks? It was right here at my station and now it's gone. Like the press on toenails, it's all so like comedic and perfect and just like everything that I need to like make me feel good in my life.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's the same connection I think I grew with it. I even though I said like you were my introduction to Drag Race, that's when I like fully was watching, but I did dip my toes into the drag race waters. In high school. I obviously Catholic high school was like watching Drag Race in Catholic high school was
No,
crazy.
no.
It felt very illegal, but I was introduced to it by a few friends of mine, and they showed me the season with Trixie and Katya and Pearl. I think that was
Season 7,
7.
yeah.
Yes, and I think that was just such a great starter season as well. I think Kimchi was in that one too, right?
She's season 8. But
8.
that's so interesting that you say that. Season 7 is considered by many to be one of the worst seasons.
Really? I mean, so my first queen that I was really attached to, and that was around that time, was Pearl. And I think it was just because she was of course she's gorgeous. But I loved her kind of like, you know, la-di-da attitude, very
What did she
just
say? Flase dog.
yeah, flacida, very like nonchalant. And of course the moment with her and RuPaul, is there something on my face?
Yeah, there's something.
That shook me. It shook me. I was like, oh my gosh, she is coming for like the queen of all queens. And I love that moment on RuPaul's podcast where she talks about it. She's just like, I wanted to tell her, get your ass out of here. Like RuPaul just goes crazy, but was you could see how much she was holding it back in that moment. Another season I was sort of introduced to at that time was for or Bianca Del Rio.
5,
5 was season 5.
6, 6,
6.
6.
Oh, okay. And that season introduced me to Adore Delano, who was my
Right.
favorite at that time as well. And she went on to be one of my favorites in the All Star season.
Makes perfect sense for you.
Yeah, yeah. She's very similar to Pearl in a way. Very kind of like
Almost like
the
alt girly,
yes,
young, that kind of
yes.
thing.
So I really liked that, but I think I my I guess taste in drag queens, that sounds weird. Or like
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of changed over time and like now it's more of like the artsy queens like Sasha Velour, and I love Gottmik, and like I was saying all those other queens, and definitely a glamour queen. I love a queen who can balance like glamour and comedy.
Roxy Andrews.
Oh, not her.
Oh my
I
gosh.
cannot get behind Roxy Andrews. I'm so sorry.
I love Roxy Andrews. She's so legendary.
Where my people at? Where my people at? She is legendary.
That alone stands the test of time. You can't
Yeah,
cover the doll. You can't read the doll.
you can't read the doll. Um, can I get an amen?
It speaks for itself. The work is there, the performance is there, the comedy, the glamour, the beauty, the prestige.
Yes, yes. Why is drag important to you? What would you say? Why is drag important on a larger scale, but also personally?
I just love the like expression, the
Hmm.
artistic capabilities, the beauty, the humor, the showmanship, the talent. It is
Yes.
like such an incredible display of like human capability and like what people can do when they put their mind to it. It's so impressive to me. Anybody who can do like that level of like makeup artistry, who can put their body through like dancing in high heels, who wear corsets all the time, who put on restrictive clothing, who like
Mhm.
everything about it is like such an arduous undertaking that it really impresses me when people choose to go out and do that and perform and put on a fabulous show.
Absolutely. Like I am always so impressed with like just everything that goes into it. You know, of course the creative process, but also like just financially. Like it is such an undertaking.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It takes so much energy, like creating this personality and, you know, what sort of clothes does this personality wear and how are you expressing, you know, your real identity in this sort of alter ego in a way. I think it's so beautiful. It's such like a unique artistic outlet that you know it's like if a painting was a person. It's so cool, and I think it's such a unique creative outlet, and it's such a versatile one too. I mean, I have seen drag that's, you know, of course, lip syncing, dancing, floor work, stuff like that, but also drag where they are acting in a play. And it's like this really serious type of drag, very dramatic, you know, not a lot of like laughing, cheering, hooping, hollering.
Mhm.
There's just so many different variations to it and everything. And um, I think, unfortunately, it's not taken very seriously, of course, by people that aren't really in those social circles, and it's sort of looked at from an outside perspective in a way that's very like not correct. So I think it's such a misunderstood art form as well by people that aren't close to it. So yeah, I think it's just a really cool thing. So what would you say to those people that like have a misunderstanding? Would you encourage them to go to a drag show, or how would you encourage them to approach that?
Um, that's a good
Or
question. That's kind of
yeah,
hard to answer.
is it like a sort of
Um,
like stay away, this isn't for you sort of thing?
no, I wouldn't really tell anybody to stay away unless they're like being outwardly hateful.
Yeah,
Then it's like, don't waste your time, don't waste our time.
right.
We don't need you in the space, like
Yeah.
mucking up the waters.
Mhm.
But if you're on the fence, if you're like don't know anything about it and you want to learn more, go with an open mind.
Yes.
Also, drag queens always can tell who is the most nervous person in the room and they will single you out. Um, so come ready to interact with somebody who is there to perform and put on a show for you.
Right, right. I agree. And it's such like a unique type of performance too, because it's not like you're watching it from afar on a stage. I mean, you could be, but most times like someone's first drag show is like a drag brunch. And that is like so close to you. And like if you're giving them a tip, like you're making contact with them and everything. Like it's such a interactive type of performance too, which I remember my first drag brunch, I was nervous. Yeah, it's kind of intimidating in a way, but I would agree. Open mind is the best sort of way to go about it. Uh, any other favorite drag race moments that stick out to you? Favorite quotes?
I mean, I just have to like think through it all. There's like so
It's a
many
lot.
things.
Yes.
Of course, like you. I love Bianca Del Rio, so I think back
Yeah.
to what do you do successfully quickly.
Quickly.
Um, you remind me of a good friend of mine. She's dead. Like, there's just so much great little moments. Guest judges, even what's her name, Michelle Williams
Oh my
of
gosh.
Destiny's Child, coming onto the show in its first season, looking one of the
Yes.
performers in the face and saying, "I just see a messy man," is an insane thing to come out of your mouth on a drag
I
show.
just see a messy man.
Um,
Was she the, correct me if, was she the one on that Freddy Krueger movie?
that's Kelly Rowland.
Oh, okay. Oh wow, they both are saying
Messy.
crazy stuff.
Um, or like Nicki Minaj, controversial. Um,
Controversial, yes.
coming on the show and saying, "I hate your hair and makeup."
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Particularly, I love the stand-up challenges. And even more particularly, I love the Laganja Estranja stand-up.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love the pheromone one, as we know. Let's get this roast a cooking. But Laganja Estranja's is just like, to me, when someone asks me what camp is to me, it is that. It is just so outrageously dry, and uh, it just was something that the perspective on it I think changed so much with time, where it like when it first came out, I was like, oh my gosh, she's bombing. This is the worst ever. But looking back, it is like the funniest thing on that show to me.
And just like with basically any of those comedy, like the roast or stand-up challenges, if they had added a laugh track to her performance,
Completely
she would have
changed.
won
Yes.
because it is so funny. It's just
Right.
absurd and crazy things to say to people that it's funny. It's like you can't help
Yes.
but laugh at what's
Yes.
being said because it's so absurd and it's so just like bam.
Yeah. Or of course there's the Ben de la Creme stand up where that one guy in the audience was like, "Get off the stage." And she's like, "Good night, everybody." And she just it was like very abrupt. She just walked off stage. That was good. And of course, Utica.
Oh, stop because that one was bad. That one was
That
there.
no, no, that one was
No laugh
genuinely
track
bad.
would have gone. No laugh track would have given that one a little boost.
That was really bad. But of course, what was the name of the guest judge?
Lonnie Love
Lonnie Love. You're the one bombing. I iconic. Like just ate her up in a second.
didn't even like hardly needed to say anything.
Right.
Lonnie Love is so funny. That makes me think of uh The Talk. I think is what her show that she's on. It's like The View, but it's
Uh-huh.
not. And she's like, somebody's like, "What are you gonna be doing in 10 years?" And Lonnie Love just goes, "Well, probably be dead." And every other woman on that panel is like, "Don't say that, no."
And she's like,
And
"Yep,
she's like,
yep."
or when I, oh my gosh, I can never remember who it was. It's one of the Maori twins, Tio or Tamara. And she was like, oh no, it was Tamar.
Oh, do I look like a Muppet?
Muppet. Like, Lottie Love is too funny.
She is. She is. I didn't know. I didn't make the connection that that was her saying, "I'll probably be dead." So funny. But yeah, this show is just like a world of gold entertainment or entertainment gold. It is so fun, so lovely. If you have not watched it, I don't know what to tell you, but just go start, go do it. So, what's like a good starting point for people you think that have not seen it?
I mean, season 9 is really, really good. Again, it has like everything that you want in it. It has those really strong queens like Shea Coulee, Peppermint, Sasha Velour, Valentina, who at the time, very divisive, loved her or
Yes.
hated her.
Hmm.
Honestly, still is that way to this day.
Yeah.
Um, but it just has everything that I think a perfect season needs to be that good. And I think it's one of the first seasons that won like some Emmy.
Oh, wow. Really?
I think that that was the first time that RuPaul won for like best host of a reality show.
Oh my gosh, she was recently dethroned. I know that by
But she's still the most Emmy award winning host.
yes,
Emmy
yes,
award winning host.
which I think is well deserved. She's a pretty good host.
The work that they put into that show, for sure.
Yeah, and RuPaul, you can just tell like has her hand in so many different places with the show, and honestly, like created an empire with it. Of course, like in the drag community, but also just internationally, like the amount of shows, drag race shows there are now that RuPaul is not even a host for, just created something like huge. Yeah. So Drag Race, go watch it. Okay, moving right on ahead. This is our now showing segment, which is our feature ideological analysis and critical film review segment by yours truly and guest. Now showing in this week's episode is Carol. Carol is a 2015 film directed by Todd Haynes starring Rooney Mara, who plays Therese, a coy photographer working at a department store during the holiday season. When Therese meets Carol, played by Cate Blanchett, Therese is immediately enthralled and falls into a deep love affair with the alluring woman. What do you think about this movie?
Well, going into this movie, I knew that I had to really pay attention because I'm
Mhm.
such like a I feel like the perfect movie watcher because for any director, I will fall for any trick, anything that you put out there because I'm so like passive when it comes to watching movies that I'm just like absorbing the media. I'm like, oh, I love all these bright colors. I love this funny character. So any trick, any little stunt, anything that they pull immediately gets me. And I'm like, I would have never expected that to happen. And so this time I was like, let me take some notes. Let me watch this closely. Let me get
Yes.
into it. I really enjoyed it. There were
Mhm.
twists and turns. There was love. There was hatred. There was um, crazy names that I've never heard before in my entire life. There's the evil guy from White Lotus, season one. Like
Oh my gosh.
it had, it had everything.
Yes, it really did. This movie to me is like if Call Me by Your Name was starring lesbian women, and
Who
it
are age
was
appropriate.
who are more age appropriate than that movie, but still an age gap. And the production of the movie itself was not problematic, and it was taking place during the holiday season in 1950s New York instead of 1980s Italy during the summer. So a lot of different hoops you have to jump through, but you get what I mean, right?
I see the vibe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do see the
And
vibe.
the structure of the story, this will be a spoiler review. The structure of the story is very similar to that. Kind of like the ending where it's kind of like devastating but open-ended, where it's kind of like they didn't end up together, but she went to that dinner and showed up and just could have stood there watching her. Where it's like, okay, well, like, is this meaning that she wants to take her up on the offer and be with her? Like, what does it mean? It's left to imply that like they do end up staying together, which I really like.
I agree.
So it's a bit more comforting than Call Me by Your Name, which is like he's staring into the fireplace, like
Burning.
loveless.
Yeah,
Very devastating ending. But yeah, it was very similar to that to me. And even the imagery in this movie is what really stuck out to me. This was my second time seeing it, and I noticed this time around like a lot of the more technical elements, like the use of color here. The colors were so vibrant. Like every time someone was wearing red or like red lipstick, red nails, it just pops on screen. And the whole time there was sort of like this grainy effect, almost like it was made on physical film, which it might have been. It was just shot beautifully. The costuming was spectacular. Everything that Cate Blanchett wore was gorgeous,
hmm
stunning. So, what what were some specific moments in this movie that stuck out to you?
I will have to say I took notes, but I did not do any further research afterward.
Yeah,
Um,
which is what I do on the show. I just don't do research and talk about the movie.
and so immediately from the jump, I was like, I have no idea where we are.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
this must be Chicago. And so, of course, in my notes, I made a joke about Chicago, Trina Vega, Victorious, because it's all about women. Um, but apparently, it's set in New York City. Could have fooled me. There was no
yeah.
shot of the Empire State Building, no Statue of Liberty, no like Brooklyn Bridge, not even the freaking Twin Towers.
I know.
I was like, okay, I guess we're just somewhere, some big city.
Yeah,
Um, which is fine. It's whatever. You're supposed to like, I guess, assume that it's somewhere big, but like,
which we talked about this, and I was like, oh well, that one character did work at the New York Times, which I had the same issue where I was like, where is this? Because then they go to the Midwest at some point. So I'm like, okay, well, where were they starting from? And I guess that one character mentioning he worked for the New York Times or wherever, I was just kind of like, okay, well, they're in a big city. And it just like did not
yes.
register in my head. So yeah.
Let me see. I also talked about like you, like every shot was so intentional for
Mhm.
putting whatever they wanted to really feature. So if it was the nails tapping on the glass of the like display to get the attention, if it was her,
Yes.
while the rest of the crowd, even though it's in the foreground, is blurred and it's just Kate Blanchett in focus across the like wherever. That was so intentionally done.
Mhm.
And it does, I feel like, link up to the whole like photography aspect because a lot of Teresa's
Yes.
photos were so more like abstract than they would be
Mhm.
like portraiture or anything like that. That I felt like it was like almost like a photo book put together.
So that's the end of the episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. That was wow. The mind of a master. What do they call it?
The mind of a mastermind.
Yes.
I'm so creative like that.
You are so creative. That chills. Every time I have a guest on, they just like beat me at my own game. Because when I had the Challengers episode, I had on my friend Zach, and he was like, "Oh yeah, the whole movie and like the relationship is just like a metaphor of like the game of tennis that they're playing throughout the movie." I was like, what? But that is like so beautifully described. I mean, I kind of picked up when Therese says something towards the beginning to Carol where she's like, I don't really take pictures of people because it feels like very intimate, very private. So I love when we first see Therese taking that first picture of Carol where it kind of like looks like she's a stalker almost, where it feels very invasive and it's just kind of like Carol, like, candid, looking over her shoulder. Um, and you can sort of feel Therese letting herself in to this person of Carol.
Mhm.
Um, so I really like the way you described it, kind of like this is like a photo book of the relationship. And I love the way, like you were saying, that the movie sets up its shots to catch the audience's attention. When we first meet Carol, she goes up to the counter at the department store that Therese works at, and she throws her gloves down, and the gloves kind of make like a loud pat sound. And we look at the gloves first, and then we pan up to Carol. And I kind of like the way that the film guides your attention and kind of like Carol is a very purse first sort of person, you know?
Mhm.
Like she kind of has this imagery to her character, like the nails, the gloves, the coat, everything. And then there's just like this larger than life personality. What did you think of just Carol's personality and her mannerisms?
Carol seemed super intentional. The second that she
Hmm.
put those gloves down, I knew she was going to leave them.
Yeah.
And I knew it was because she wanted Miss
Yes.
Therese to send them back to her. I think she wanted her to like come and show up,
Right.
um, which is why she bought the expensive thing and put in her address and everything. Like,
Yeah.
if Therese was not there, she would not have bought something.
Yeah, and I think this is similar. This is where it's similar to Call Me by Your Name in a way where I think this could be interpreted as like that could be interpreted as sort of like creepy on Carol's part, like because she left the gloves there on purpose. So it's almost like she was sort of scheming and like setting this up and like had sort of these intentions from the beginning that which she was very roundabout about. So but I think when you look back at this, it's a historical film.
Hmm.
And that was just the world at the time. Like it was cruising in a way.
That's literally what I was thinking. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, you kind of had to be just very like
You have to lay out
discreet.
steps and like breadcrumbs, and if they follow the breadcrumbs the right way, then you can know.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
because of especially American society at that time, you had to be so nondescript about it and have these kind of like hidden languages and hidden meanings to sort of signal off. And of course, like you might, from Carol's perspective, it might be someone like Therese who's never done this before and everything. So from like today's perspective, yes, it could be interpreted kind of in like a creepy way, but this is just the society that these characters were living in at the time. This is what had to be done in order for them to, you know, pursue authentic relationships. Um, so I think that that was interesting. Carol's character, though, is just so larger than life. The second time around, I was just obsessed with the way this character was written and her different sort of like character mannerisms. And there is no better actor to fill those shoes than Cate Blanchett. I mean, Cate Blanchett delivers every single time, every movie she's in since, you know, Talented Mr. Ripley. Always there, always delivering, and then some. This character, I just love the way she was introduced. Her styling was just so good. And I love like the little things like at lunch when she doesn't even open the menu to decide what she wants. And she's like, I want this and this and this and a dry martini. And it sort of leaves Therese bewildered and she's like, I'll do
Just,
the same.
yep.
It's just stuff like that. And she had so many different quotes that I think were just like outrageous and funny. But she's also like an incredibly emotional character too. And I like that she just wasn't this dimensional, like campy personality. Like she was going through a lot and like she had emotional moments and was put through a lot in this movie.
100%.
I mean, even more so than Therese was. Did do you think Carol suffered more than Jesus?
I think that it might just, you know what? Let's give Jesus a little bit like of grace
Yes. Oop.
and say it's a tie.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Because it was like one thing after the next for Carol to deal with. I
Yeah.
honestly, when we first met her, I was not expecting her to be married. She had just like
Mhm.
independent woman energy. Destiny Child, shout out. Um, and then to like go back and she has a daughter, unexpected to me. I was like not expecting her to be a
Rindy.
mother. Rindy, first of the weird names.
Yes.
Um, but she's like this doting, but she clearly loves being a mom to Rindy, and like
Right.
that's like her favorite thing.
Mhm.
And then to see Harge, husband, ex-husband,
Right.
another weird name,
Yes.
show up and be like this crazy guy, I was also kind of shocked as I was like, what are you doing here? Are you supposed to be like dealing with Godzilla? Um,
Right.
but he was just like, again, she was the very domineering, strong-willed one, and he was kind of the more like held down, repressed one who was like
Yes.
yearning. He was yearning for
Yeah.
her,
Hmm.
but she was having none of it.
Right.
And then even through the end, like when her and Carol are having, not her and Carol, her and Therese are having those intimate moments
Hmm.
and having them be recorded by this guy, that was like such like a sucker punch. I was like,
Yes.
that's like sick.
It is. It
And it's
is.
so crazy that that Harge would have her like track down and do all that
Right.
because he was being vindictive. He wanted to keep Rindy away from her because he knew the only thing that she wanted from that relationship between the two of them was to continue being a mother to Rindy.
Yes. I say this about every single movie, and I think I just find a way for everything to be like a critique on masculinity. But I think that this movie was, an incredible critique on masculinity, especially during the 1950s when patriarchal masculinity was like at its highest, like showing one of the very few like male characters in this movie being highly emotional, highly vindictive, and incredibly envious and jealous, sort of like all things that are countering the dominant ideas of masculinity during that time. I think that this film made itself into an incredible critique of masculinity because he was just like so emotionally driven and like not thinking at all, which you would people won't say about men at that time.
And they kind of did it with both of their partners, like Therese's boyfriend, who was
Right.
constantly like trying to demand that she marry him and like leave and go be a housewife.
Right.
He is also incredibly jealous. She meets Carol, befriends her, and then is going on a trip for a weekend or something. And
Right.
Ricky or Richie, whatever his name is, was so like jealous and mad about it
Right.
because she wouldn't go to Paris with him and like go get engaged, but she'll go to like the countryside or whatever with Carol. And he is so mad about it, and he's outwardly like sharing his frustration and his anger and his jealousy to Therese, and she's like, I can't deal with you.
Right. Yeah, and I think they're Harge and whoever the guy from The Office. I don't know the actor's name. He was in The Office.
He was in, was he?
Yeah, he was like the young version of Jim, like one of the interns, I think.
Oh, he was also in My Lotus.
Oh, I didn't know that. And he
Season
was dating
one.
like the receptionist. But his character, I think, was like kind of on the opposite side of the coin from Harge, where he was sort of presented as like a nice guy and like a friend of Therese, but then he turns out to be like just as controlling. And he even finds out like that they're pretty much like seeing each other. And he's like, well, like you have to hide that and blah blah blah, like just be with me. And still very controlling, sort of like countering Harge's sort of submissiveness. This guy's very dominant, which is weird because he sort of presents as like submissive.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm using these terms now. Um, so yeah, it's just interesting, like what is presented with these characters, and then how they actually end up being, and how they affect both Therese and Carol. One thing that I really like that about these characters is that you would think, since Therese is the one sort of discovering these things about herself, and she's sort of like the young gay, quote unquote,
Mhm.
you think that she would be the one sort of going through the ringer and like the emotional ringer and like really struggling. But it's really Carol, the one who's like been, you know, doing this for a while and like is much more mature than Therese and knows what she wants. It's her that's really struggling with her sexuality and like with this life. So I think that's a really interesting inversion of like what you'd expect.
Yeah. Something else I noticed too about Therese's boyfriend, the difference between how Carol interacts with Therese versus him, he only ever calls her Terry,
Mm,
and Carol only ever calls her Therese,
right.
which she says she changed her name to Therese because she wanted to be like more artistic, more whatever. And Carol's like, okay, Therese it is. But the
Right.
boyfriend only calls her Terry, which kind of to me seems like he's like downplaying her and what she wants. Which she wants to be a photographer, and he's like, "Oh, you can put the camera down, you can take pictures of whatever." It's like it's almost making it seem like it's silly for her to want that.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that. I think I wrote a note somewhere in here about like how Carol is so much more caring for Therese than anyone else in her life. And no one really takes these women seriously except themselves, which I think just makes them a perfect couple. And I love the moment when Carol goes into Therese's apartment for the first time and looks at her photography on the wall, and she's so like she's just as captivated by Therese than Therese is with her, because you'd think like, oh, it's just Therese who's down bad, but when you see Carol like looking at sort of Therese's art, you could see like she's just as like down bad in love with Therese.
100%.
So I really liked that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like there is kind of this side to it that's like there's a power imbalance. Obviously, Carol is very wealthy.
Hmm.
Therese is a working girl. But I feel like pulling Therese out of the work and making her go into the real world with Carol, this emphasis on Carol being like super wealthy and paying for everything isn't really the main point of the story. Like she invites Carol to come, or not, and Carol, I keep doing that. She invites Therese to come with
Right.
her. They say they're going across the country. They end up in like Iowa or something like that. And I'm like, okay, weren't you trying to go to like California or something?
Right.
But anyway, they end up in Iowa. And the entire time that they've been going, they've been staying in hotel and hotel. You see Therese throughout that paying for her own stuff, sometimes paying for things for Carol.
Oh.
And so in that instance, money doesn't really seem to be part of the imbalance.
Mm.
Maybe it is this like the years of experience, or the years they put into being a lesbian or whatever. But um, to me, it felt more like by Carol inviting Therese outside of the workplace, outside of the sphere where she's like Therese, the like cashier.
Right.
That was Carol putting Therese into equal footing.
Wow. I didn't even pick up on that. Like I never noticed Therese paying for herself, but yeah, that's a really cool and like important note, I think, for people watching.
I feel like we need to bring up Abby because she is also like one of the core parts of this storyline, played by
Mhm.
Sarah Paulson, of course.
Yes.
It was like introducing her through Rendy being like, oh, we spent time with Aunt Abby. It was such like a Michelle Williams in Brokeback Mountain moment to me where she's like looking through the screen door at innocent Jack Twist kissing and stuff. Like that's how I felt like Harge was. Harge was like, oh, Aunt Abby, you're hanging out with her,
Yeah.
huh? And it's like this is really kind of like women and male fields because then she's following it up with like we're divorced, you're my ex-husband, and it's like wow, she is like I don't need your permission, I'm out here with my old flame
Yeah.
hanging out with me and my daughter. And I do love the fact that she again, such a mother moment, she's introducing and keeping contact with her like OG lesbian lover
Hmm.
and being like, this is my daughter's Aunt Abby.
Yes.
And like bringing the daughter into it immediately. Same with Therese. The first time that they hang out outside of the
Mhm.
restaurant is to go hang out with Rindy and like decorate and make fun Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's no sneaking around. And like, I think that's part of what I like about it too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that sort of narrative can be very tired. And I like that, like you said, when Harge was sort of on Carol about like, oh my gosh, Abby this, Abby that. She's like, Abby is Rindy's godmother. Like, they will see each other.
Hmm.
And I love that Abby is a part of this story later on. I love when Abby goes and sort of collects Therese after that incident at the motel happened. And Therese was kind of like, not thrilled. And she was like, oh, are you here to like, you know,
Give her to me or
get
whatever.
rid of me? And I love that Abby sort of becomes like a nurturing figure for Therese as well, just as much as she is for Carol in a way, because Carol confides in Abby a lot. So I love that like there's like this sense of community and like chosen found family happening here as well.
Yeah, I did kind of feel bad that Abby had to be like the middleman the entire time between Therese and Carol when Carol's like going through the like custody
Yeah,
battle and stuff. Because I was like, I don't know how Abby still feels about Carol. In my mind, they're kind of still having that closeness, but they also just have like a very like close, intimate relationship being
right.
friends. Um, but I did feel bad that she had to be the one who like kept traveling because she can tell that one, Therese is still like yearning after Carol and vice versa. I mean, the phone call that Therese does like in the middle of the night and she calls Carol's house and Carol picks up and is just listening to Therese being like, Carol, are you there? And it's like so like emotionally wrought because Carol wants to talk back and
Yes.
wants to be back with her.
Hmm.
And then the hanging up of the phone and Therese saying, I miss you. I was like, wow, they don't do yearning like they do
My
with Carol
gosh.
2015.
I know, and just like the dramatics of like the phone. There was so much like phone stuff in this
Yes.
where it's like picking up and like not saying anything or like just like the phone booth that Carol was in multiple times throughout the movie. So much like phone drama, and I
Yeah.
was living for it. Um, yeah.
I also love this kind of like, again, kind of to take down this power imbalance. Carol is insecure about Therese. When
Mm,
they first start driving, after Carol has the injunction placed on her for where she can't see her daughter,
mm,
she asks Therese, "Do you miss Richard?"
mm.
Somebody who's like secure and sure of the relationship and like secure and sure of like how they are, where they are, wouldn't be asking, "Do you miss Richard?"
Right.
And
Yeah.
I felt like that was another good thing to add to show that they're both unsure about what's going on. They're both like, this is almost uncharted territory for Carol, even though she's been there
Right.
before.
Yeah, even though that the movie is letting on that Carol has done this before, I think that this is just as new for Carol in a way because something I wrote down is something that Carol mentioned a lot, where it's like, "Oh, you're just a girl who like flew in from space, like dropped out of nowhere." Where Therese is just sort of like this spectacle to her, where she's like just a
Like
spectacular person.
new and unique, never before seen, like
Yeah.
someone unexpected. Like Carol
Mhm.
was like, I would never have expected to see someone like you working at like a toy store.
Yeah, and I think it works well with Therese's character, where she sort of like is very thinks very little of herself in some regards. Like with her photography, she's very self conscious about it, and she like I read a description on IMDb that said she was an ambitious photographer, and I wouldn't really use that adjective.
I would not either. I
So
feel like she starts off unsure about herself.
yeah,
And through her relationship with Carol and then losing Carol, she becomes more self assured. And I would say after that, she's more ambitious.
yeah, and I think that leads me to say that this is a perfect ending. I love this ending. I love that it ends the way it starts in a way where we're sort of seeing this like meeting that they had like after a long while that gets interrupted and it doesn't really go the way they want. They're sort of torn apart, and it's left to Therese, who throughout the film has been a very shy and sort of like insecure, unsure sort of person. It's left to Therese to sort of make the choice. So I think it just makes it that much more powerful when she shows up and sort of like, I mean, makes her love for Carol as public as she could have during that time. She just like shows up at this dinner and it's like, again, sort of like almost intruding, being invasive, like her photography. She's just sort of like showing up at this dinner, making herself seen, and looking at Carol from across the restaurant. Perfect.
Which I felt like, again, was such like a perfect way to display how this relationship is. Again, Carol being unsure. She's coming there for the first time to meet up with Therese after not talking for a
Right.
seemingly like a year, maybe.
Right.
And then coming to the dinner and being nervous and then being like, oh, just you go have fun at the party. I have to go. And then she
Mhm.
leaves, giving Therese the power to decide, am I going to do it? Am I going to go see her? And you kind of get the impression that she still has feelings for Carol because immediately as she's in the car leaving, she sees a woman walking and she thinks it's Carol. And
Right.
she like stares at this woman and she's like studying her, trying to see if it is Carol, which I think
Yeah.
was kind of a giveaway that she was going to be like, okay, I'm coming back.
Right. They're like looking for each other in crowds and everything. I
Yes.
love that dynamic. And yeah, there's like this theme of like viewership in a way, or like um audience. I don't know how to describe it. Sort of like that intrusive, like looking in on something. The way they like look in on each other, like that first picture that she took sort of looked very invasive.
Mhm.
And the way I think Carol even had a moment too where she was like looking from a car window for Therese, like searching through crowds as as she drove by.
Mhm.
There's a lot of shots of them looking out car windows and stuff, and sort of like looking for each other in a way. It's
It's kind of like voyeuristic almost, like
boy,
to
that's
use
the
that
word.
kind of word,
That's the
which is
word.
intense, but like the listening on the phone while Therese is like trying to
Right.
get her to answer. The like there's a picture that Therese took of Carol while Carol was asleep, or
Mm.
across the parking lot at the Christmas tree, or in the crowds. They're seeing each like this idea that they're like looking from beyond something for the other person.
Yeah, and I think that makes the motel sequence all the more intense because it's using those themes of voyeurism, and it's like, it's setting up kind of like positive voyeurism in a way, like you were saying, like the looks from across the restaurant, and it's turning it upside down into something horrifying where it's voyeurism in the worst way because it is invasive in a negative way.
Mhm.
It's intrusive in a negative way, and these two characters were in a place where they thought they were completely private and they were safe to sort of just express themselves sexually, romantically, all of that, and they were not able to. Um, so I think that voyeurism is a really big theme of the movie, and like the way that voyeurism is used and like in a positive way or a negative way. So yeah.
Yeah, because for them, for Carol and Therese, it's almost like they're constantly seeking each other out in spaces where they think they should be, or maybe where they're like hoping to see them or hear them or whatever. And the motel scene where the guy is like wiretapped their room takes away their power from it, because when
Right.
it's them looking for each other, they have the power. They're trying to like unite their twin flames.
Mhm.
Um, and in this moment, they've had their power taken away. They've had this moment stripped from them and used against them.
Right.
And
Right.
the whole motel scene, I feel like we have to like kind of talk about it too, because it
Yeah.
starts off so lovely. There's a whole, I love the moment where you can tell that Carol like wants to kiss Therese, but then Therese kind of like looks away or like swerves her, and then Cate Blanchett's like, to President McKinley, holding like this like glass of champagne or whatever. And it's so funny. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to start saying to President McKinley if somebody swerves me. But then it like develops and they're like, you can kiss me. We're in the same bed. And it's like very intimate and romantic. And it's like,
Mm.
again, it feels like it's new for both of them almost. Um, and to have it be flipped the next morning, this time where you're supposed to like be enjoying each other's presence and like feel calm and happy,
Mhm.
it's unsettled by Abby calling, saying there's somebody in the other room who has a tape and he sent it off. And then to
Yeah.
show up, run around. When I say she's Carol, Carol is like very, very upset about this, obviously, because she's
Mhm.
been dealing with the injunction against her, which has prevented her from seeing Rindy. And then Therese, who's so confused about what's going on, and she's feeling like something went wrong and she's
She
done
did
something
something.
wrong.
Yeah.
And then the gun coming out, the gun being unloaded,
Oh my gosh.
and her like pointing the gun at the guy and then trying to shoot the like listening device or whatever, and there's no bullets coming out. She just like throws it. It's so funny. But also it's like
It's not, yeah,
it's
it's,
not funny
I
at the
mean,
same
that's
time.
funny because it's just like she kind of had this idea in mind. Like, I think she knows that she's a bit larger than life and it doesn't always follow through. Like she was expecting like this dramatic moment where she's,
Like takes the
shoots it.
tape.
Yeah, but then it's like doesn't work out. She's like, "Hmm." So it's kind of like a funny moment for her character, which is weird because it's in such a dark
Yes.
sequence, which I think that is a credit to this director, Todd Haynes. Have you seen May December?
I've been avoiding that movie.
Okay. But that movie is also like very dark in a way, but it has just like so much comedy scattered throughout, and like Julianne Moore's performance in it is just like Carol's, larger than life, like just outrageous. And I haven't seen his movie Safe with Julianne Moore as well, but I heard that that movie is like also very outrageous. Um, so I think that moment is a credit to his director, but in many ways that sequence is almost like acts as like a horror moment for queer people, I think, where it's like you are in your most private space and it is somehow still invaded.
Mhm.
And I think that's just like a sign of the time. Like it kind of shows how horrifying it was to be a queer person at that time. Like there were no safe spaces really, because when there was a safe space, you had like witch hunters per se out there kind of like looking to destroy it for whatever reason. Harge being a good example. He's just vindictive and highly emotional and destructive. So yeah, I think that that scene is horrifying, and makes the ending all the more impactful because it, is showing that Carol's willing to put these things aside and Therese is willing to like make her love slightly more public, again, as public as it could be. So yeah, I think that that sequence is sort of like the crux of the movie.
Yeah.
So
And speaking of the ending of the movie, I feel like Carol is making a really big sacrifice at the end too.
Mm-hmm.
When she's in that meeting with the lawyers, she's gone to like three psychiatrists or whatever to like have them like talk about what happened between her and Therese,
Right.
to try to get her a chance to win custody over Rindy, or at least partial. And she's like, I need to say this now, or I'll never say it again. And like, just like kind of unloads and is like, listen, I feel like Rindy is going to have a great life if she's with just you. I need to have some time with her too, whether that's like structured or supervised or whatever visitation. But she can't be in this like torn up house. She can't be constantly tugged back and forth between the
Right.
two and
Mm-hmm.
used as like a pawn to like get one up over the other. And she like says, I'm not like embarrassed of this. It wasn't a mistake. I did that. That's who I am. And then she leaves the meeting and calls up Therese to meet.
Yes. Incredibly powerful scene. I also wrote down a quote from that scene. I thought that that scene next to the motel scene and the ending was sort of like a standout in this movie. But there is a quote that says, "What use?" Carol is saying this about Rindy. "What use am I to her, to us, if I'm living against my own grain?" Beautiful message.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that instead of sort of like the narrative of this movie being Carol backing down for the sake of Rindy, that's not the case. She's in fact like stepping up and making herself more authentic and living more truthfully for the sake of Rindy. I love that that is the narrative here. I love, of course, I love that no one was killed in this
Mm-hmm.
movie. And, you know, I love the fact that there is hope for a happy ending with these two lovers. Like it's not just like, oh, they were scared by that motel incident, which they were, but it wasn't like they never saw each other again after that. They were so destroyed by that. Like they still sought each other out. Like this is a very like prideful movie.
Yes.
And yeah, it just has a beautiful narrative, even though it's like very kind of somber at times.
Yes. I was like total hard eyes. I love the ending. I felt like it was like
Mhm.
such a good payoff for them to have gone through all that they went through, for Therese to be kind of like at a high moment for herself and to go to the party and like interact with the guys. She sees this woman who the movie leads us to believe is another like lesbian.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's like, there's only one person for me.
Yeah.
She sees Richie dancing with another girl. He gives her a mad face or whatever, snore.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have to go. And she goes and she sees Carol.
Mhm.
And it ends with them seeing each other across this restaurant again, separated by these people, but connecting one on one. And
Oh my gosh.
to me, perfect ending. I didn't need to see them like driving off anywhere. I think that that moment was like
Yes.
such a perfect
Yes.
encapsulation. And it was kind of a like return to where they started too,
Right.
of being separated by all these people and having all this noise around them, but focus one on one.
Beautiful. Yeah, it was just perfect. I love endings that do not overexpose themselves. Like I much rather have a very, very, very obscure and left up to interpretation ending than like something that explains it all and like shows them 20 years from now living together. You know, I rather just like leave it kind of like open, which is why I love Twin Peaks so much, I guess. I'm gonna find a way to talk about that in every episode if you haven't made connected that. Any remaining thoughts about this movie that you have?
Love it. Love, love, love. I
Mm-hmm,
love Cate
mm-hmm.
Blanchett. I think that
Yes.
she's never been bad in a movie.
Yeah.
She, despite being Australian, does, oh, is she British?
No, no, no. She's Australian. Yeah.
Despite being Australian, I'm going to have to like come after Nicole Kidman a little bit. Cate Blanchett can do any accent
No, no, no.
without
You're
a
right.
hint of Australian dripping through.
Yes.
Um, Nicole Kidman, we cannot say the same for you. Or I can't anyway. I'm not going to speak for both of us, but I
I won't
I
comment.
watch
I don't want to be canceled.
little Big Little Lies still. I've
Okay.
seen you, Nicole Kidman. I've
Yeah.
seen you. Um, but Kate Blanchett is like such a chameleon. She's such like a powerful actress. She has like so much
Yes.
skill, so much versatility, and she's like, I mean, at any age, she's just so like she captures you. She's so beautiful. She's so like
Yes.
powerful, and she has
Yes.
like any kind of face she does is like you can only look at her. And it's like so
Yes.
she's statuesque. She's like everything about her, and she's like so like Shakespearean almost. And then
Yeah.
she's like has this old school charm that makes her so alluring.
Yes. The Disney villain gaze. The
The
gaze.
gays.
Oh, I thought you meant the
The gays.
gays. Um, but you're so right. And like, I don't know who was casting this movie, but like, Cate Blanchett was the one.
Perfect.
Specifically her, and like, just the inclusion of Sarah Paulson. Like, she needed to be in this movie as well.
They had
Sarah
to bring in a
Paulson
real one.
had to be here. And of course, I love like the little friendship between Sarah Paulson and Cate Blanchett, like their Instagram lives together and everything. Um, I don't need to hear that. Stop that. Wait. Oh no, that was Leslie Grossman
That
that
was,
she was with, but
but
they also had a
same vibe.
Instagram live moment, I think. Um, but Cate Blanchett like is the one for this role. I agree with everything you said, hands down. Like she is just like captivating. Like you cannot take your eyes off her. And specifically at the scene where Carol takes Therese to lunch for the first time, like the eye contact that Carol is making with the camera and with Therese
Mhm.
is like so fierce. Like she is eye fucking us. Like the way she's like just very like
It's so good. It's so good.
eating the scenery. Like just yeah.
And I'll tip my hat to Rooney Mara too. Like,
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
necessarily like always think of her as like somebody who I want to see in a movie, but she I think was like the perfect person for this.
Yes.
And her name being Therese in the movie was so perfect. She's like, I don't know, she gives French vibes to me. Like her name should be like
Yeah.
Amelie or something like that, and she should have like black hair that's like covering half of her face, and like
Right.
she needs to be smoking a cigarette all the time. Like something about that is like her to me, but she was like she did a excellent job playing off of Kate
Hmm.
Blanchett's more like Shakespearean powerful
Yeah.
performance as being this kind of more like ebbing and flowing character in the background who grows and shrinks depending on what's needed
They complemented each other very well.
perfectly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the male characters did a great job being evil, malicious, I guess.
I only associate those two men with being like annoying people. Like the Richie or whatever his name is, Therese's boyfriend,
Mhm.
is such an annoying asshole in White Lotus. Like
Yeah.
and he's such like a crybaby too about it. That it's like I can only see him as being that annoying person,
Right.
and he carried that over perfectly into this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the guy, I mean, he was in Godzilla. That was the last thing I saw him in,
Yeah.
and he was annoying in that movie too. um, but he was also kind of like whipped to his ex-wife,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like in this one,
Yeah.
who was another strong, statuesque woman.
Yes. Overall, what is your rating for this movie?
I have to say, like 9 out of 10. It was really good.
Yeah.
Perfect story,
Mhm.
perfect ending, peaks, valleys, drama, comedy, two gorgeous women who are playing off of each other so perfectly,
Yes.
annoying men who add to the like overall fire of the two women. Like
Yes.
everything was like fantastic.
What's stopping it from being a 10?
Um, I feel like they should have like I don't know killed the guy.
There we go.
I
Yeah.
if the like the recording through the wall thing hadn't happened, it would have been a 10 out of 10. I don't need to like see painful things happen to queer people.
I mean, it's not as bad as Brokeback Mountain.
Stop. We don't need to get into
we
that.
we don't though. We don't. And this is, this is not to compare those two things because it's just like varying levels of like horrifying moments.
Yes.
But yeah, painfulness in this movie. If I put it on a number scale, I would also give it a 9 out of 10 for different reasons. I think what's keeping it from being a 10 is if I watch this at night, I would fall asleep before the drama happens.
Yes.
Like, sort of like before you get to the drama, you're put at risk of falling asleep. Me specifically, I fall asleep during movies all the time, which you know.
You fell asleep during Dreamgirls, so I don't know what you're like looking for. Maybe you need like explosions from the second when
Right.
it
I need to
starts.
be watching like a Michael Bay,
Fully.
like just brain dead movie in order to stay awake, I think. But this one, I feel like you can only watch it at night because the movie just has sort of like the colors are very dark and rich. It
Mhm.
just, for some reason,
Evening ambiance.
yes. But like, yeah, being someone who falls asleep all the time, it does run the risk of doing that. I'm not saying it's a boring movie. I'm just saying like it is like something you have to really be paying attention to. So, but I'm going to give Carol the Nick pick. Kate Blanchett's performance as Carol is intoxicating and riveting. The subtle, intimate dynamic captured by Blanchett and Mara is one that all romance actors should hope to communicate. Beyond the rich storytelling, profound moments, and captivating characters, Carol is a film that boasts beautiful use of color, a lovely soundtrack, and a unique holiday twist. Would you say this is a holiday movie?
I would. This is like something that you need to watch at the beginning of the month, though, I feel,
Yes.
because it's not overtly Christmassy or holiday-y,
Yeah.
but it does have the wintry, holiday breaky vibes to me.
Yes. It is not a Christmas movie. It is a holiday setting,
Yes.
which I really like. But of course, like that just makes it a perfect movie to watch like early December or
Mhm.
right now when this comes out. So definitely watch this. If you have not seen this, you can stream it on Paramount Plus, I'm pretty sure, or just rent it. It's
Netflix.
worth the money. Netflix, really?
Yeah.
Damn, I paid money for it. I have Netflix. I just assumed it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So go watch it if you have not seen it. It is a wonderful movie if we did not already state that. Okay, in our final segment, this is the Dear Coffee Nick, and in this segment, we'll be reading some letters from fellow coffee and movie
Okay.
enjoyers about their own coffee and movie opinions, reviews, thoughts, hot takes, whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, this first one is from Reese, which
Okay.
you know Reese, fraternity brothers and
Right.
all. Reese says, Dear Coffee Nick, Dear Coffee Nicks, actually.
Hello.
I've yet to mention that we're both named Nick. Is peppermint and coffee the best winter flavor or something else? What do you think?
I have strong opinions about this. Yes. I
Oh,
do
wow.
not think that gingerbread or anything like that
Mm,
needs to be added to coffee. I don't think that they complement each other.
yes.
Gingerbread is too strong. It needs to be enjoy a gingerbread cookie.
Yeah, enjoy that with your coffee. You know, it doesn't have to be the coffee.
Exactly.
Um, I also have a hot take. I think much much different than like my thoughts on fall coffee drinks. I don't think that pumpkin spice is the best fall flavor, but when it comes to holiday coffee drinks, I do think that peppermint is the best holiday flavor. Like a peppermint mocha, there's just like nothing that will put you in the Christmas spirit as much as that. But I do want to challenge the coffee industry to be more creative and come up with like other things, which I think they're doing. So, but I'd love to like try like a cranberry orange coffee, like something
Mm,
like a little different, you know?
that is interesting.
Yeah. Thank you, Reese, for sending that in. This next one is from Ben, not
Right.
that Ben.
Okay.
This is a different Ben that you do not know. But Ben says, Dear Coffee Nick, Nightmare Before Christmas is underrated. Spooky Christmas is an art form. Do you have thoughts about that?
I'm so glad that Ben, you said that. That is a 100% fact in my book.
Ooh,
I have watched Nightmare Before Christmas every single year since I was like 7 around Christmas time. It is a peak holiday movie when people are like, "Oh, I watched Die Hard for Christmas." No. I
that's
watched
tired. That's
Nightmare
tired.
Before Christmas
Yeah.
as my key holiday movie to set me in the mood to enjoy Christmas time. Things like that. I would watch Krampus around Halloween around Christmas time.
Yeah.
I would watch um like oh my gosh, what's the one? It's like Black Christmas. Love
Yes, which I
that.
just reviewed. Yep.
I mean, things like that are so, I think, quintessential to this time because
Mhm.
I don't know, something about it is just like you need the like scary stories and also the happy stories.
Yeah, and I mean that's like why I made this like uncommon Christmas series to talk about like not your average Christmas movies. I just like I said this in the first episode of the series like I'm so tired of like being thrown the same Christmas movies like A Christmas Story, Home Alone, you know, all of those every single year. And to go along with like Christmas songs, like we're just thrown the same ones every single year when there are like so many sort of like weird uncommon ones to talk about. So I think that Nightmare Before Christmas is a great one of those. Would I say it's underrated though?
No, no.
No.
I think
I
it's
think
perfectly rated.
I that movie is I mean there are like people who have a Nightmare Before Christmas tree. Like their whole tree is like Nightmare Before Christmas. I think that that movie has gotten its flowers and then some. Like I do not in fact, I won't say it's overrated, but
Let's tread carefully.
let's be
Like
careful. But it is not at all underrated.
not
It
even slightly.
has gotten all of the credit that it is due towards
A
it.
100% agree.
But I do agree that spooky Christmas is an art form. I think that horror and Christmas is just like it goes hand in hand for some reason. I don't know why, but like
It's because I feel like the horror almost is like a little bit spookier during Christmas because
Hmm.
you don't necessarily think of like spooky things at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Christmas is supposed to be like family. A lot of people associate it with like religion and church and stuff. And so having this time be flipped on its head and be
Yes.
scary makes it unexpected because you're
Right.
supposed to be like warm and cozy, safe and secure, happy and jolly.
Yeah.
Like that's what the vibe is. And so having it be the scariest stuff too is like more intense.
Yes, which is why Black Christmas is so good. I think that that perfectly encapsulates like that idea. But yeah, I agree with that. It's sort of like the safe space being invaded.
Mhm.
So I think it makes for very clever, stories. This last letter is from Cooper, and Cooper says, "Dear Coffee Nick, early Oscar predictions. Do you have any off the top of your head?"
Oh my gosh. Wish for the substance to get something.
Yes.
She needs a little acknowledgement in my
Yes.
mind. I really uh despise, I think expresses my strong feelings, how little regard the Academy seems to give to horror movies.
Hmm.
Um, Especially because so many of them are so like well shot, so well put together. The acting is incredible. I mean, like my
Right.
like top two movie is The Conjuring.
Mm.
The cinematography in that film, the acting in that film,
Yeah.
these are people who are putting so much work and effort into a movie just for it to be disregarded by what is considered to be like the highest honors or whatever. But
Right.
like, if you can't give credit to these movies, I don't. It's hard for me to like
Yeah.
give full respect to the awards, but
Right.
substance, hopefully. Um, I'm like trying to go back in my mind to the beginning of this year, which has been so long. Let me hear from you, and then I'll
Yeah.
like agree or disagree.
So, going off of that, I think that sort of like my predictions, the big thing for this Oscars is going to be we're going to finally see some horror movies recognized. I think that, with The Substance and also Nosferatu coming out on Christmas Day, it has never been more likely for horror to be recognized and possibly earn an award. I think that Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, and also just like best original screenplay, are just and score for The Substance. That's all there, and like it's up to the Academy to get over it and finally give credit to a horror movie. And then Nosferatu, obviously I have not seen it yet, but the stuff that is coming out about it, it is likely going to be a groundbreaking kind of like earth shaking movie. I read somewhere that all of the lighting used in that movie is candlelight. Just give it the Oscar. Like we don't even need to see the movie. Just give it the Oscar. I think that Challengers is going to be a really big contender in a lot of different categories. I would love to see Zendaya win an award for that. I think she'd be leading actress in a leading role, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I think that Gladiator 2, we might see a few nominations here and there just because it's like a Ridley Scott movie with like well-known actors. I hope Paul Mescal gets a nomination, even though I've not seen the movie. I'm just biased. I want to see my Irish folk do well.
Let's give it up to Denzel too. That
Yeah,
man is
Denzel.
so good.
Yes, absolutely. Um, what else am I thinking of? I think that Sing Sing, the A24 movie with Coleman Domingo, will get a nomination.
Love him.
I love Coleman Domingo. I've not seen that movie though. There was one other one that, oh, Wicked. I think that Wicked is kind of going to sweep the Oscars, probably.
Probably.
I would love to see Ariana Grande win an Oscar.
Arena Grant.
Arena Grant. I think that she did a phenomenal job. I'd love to see Cynthia Erivo win an Oscar as well. I mean, that performance was just electrifying. Uh, are you holding the space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity?
Can I see your finger?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. But I think I just hate saying that because I want Zendaya to win an Oscar too, and I feel like they'd be competing in the same categories. Um,
I actually, now that we're talking about this, I feel like Zendaya is maybe going to get supporting actress rather
mhm,
than leading, and
yeah,
Mike Feist or the other guy whose name I can't remember,
Josh O'Connor.
Josh O'Connor, one of
Yeah,
them will get like lead actor,
right,
and then that might put her in competition. And when I say her, Zendaya
right,
in competition with like Ariana Grande.
right. And I think I'm not like necessarily so pressed if Ariana Grande or Cynthia Erivo don't win this year because Wicked Part 2 is coming out next year, which the Academy might see that as like a perfect opportunity to recognize them sort of like at a different on a different year when like they might not necessarily have more competition. So I don't like when the Academy is like strategic and scheming like that. But I do think that that would be a good use of that,
Yeah.
specifically because the story's not done until the second part's out. So, yeah,
Yeah, the Academy is kind of like pageanty in that almost like it's like, oh,
yeah.
it's not your year to win, but come back
Mhm.
next year and you'll probably do
Or
better.
Jamie Lee Curtis come back in like 30 years and you'll win
Jamie
in a
Lee
year when
Curtis,
she probably should not have.
let's put you on a big picture and say lifetime achievement in 2016.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was divisive. But yeah, those are my general predictions. I feel like I had more. I mean, of course, I saw the TV Glow is still
Love.
my number one movie of the year. But I am fully not expecting that to even get a nomination because
What's the main guy's name? Jordan
Justice Smith. Yeah,
Justice Smith. Love. He
he-
is so good.
I mean, yeah,
Obsessed.
that movie, like, I can't even imagine the emotional turmoil, like the emotional tax that performing that movie took.
Hmm.
Like, that movie made me sick in a good way, I guess. But it's just like that is queer horror. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that movie. Like, I had an episode about that already. I don't want to talk about that movie
Hmm.
anymore. It's so made me like actually want to throw up in the theater. Like, so disheartening. Thank you, Cooper, for setting that in. I love talking about the Oscars, even though they are sometimes very flawed. If you would like to send in a letter, please feel free to write Dear Coffee Nick through DM on social media or email coffeenicksmoviepics@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
That was like a thorough and lovely conversation. Like, we just hit all the marks, I think.
Yes, the movie lent itself really well to just being such lovely fodder for discussion.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, a movie like that, I was very strategic. I was like, this would be, I think, just a good movie for us to go back and forth on because I don't know, you from a history perspective, I think you like are very good like picking up on things and yeah, it was just a perfect match. So thank you for coming on, and I cannot wait to have you back on the show again. This was lovely.
Yes, I agree. This was great. Thank
Yes.
you.
And thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Uncommon Christmas on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Before you go, please be sure to follow the show on social media at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok, if TikTok is still around when this comes out, and at Coffee Nick on Blue Sky. There you can stay up to date on everything about the show. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to rate the show 5 stars on your podcast app of choice and share the show with your friends. That really helps a lot. If you're listening to the audio version, check out the video version in the link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, where my people at? Where my people at?
Can I get an amen?
Can I get an amen? Thanks again for listening to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is The Moondrops, and our closing theme is March of the Hares, both songs by Nathan Moore. Before you go, please be sure to follow the show on social media at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok, and give the show the Nick Pick by rating it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks again, and see you next time.